decides to enter the room. But what I'm going to do today, my goal is to more inspire you, and I will get into some details. We'll see how the conversation flows. But I definitely want to be inspiring to you about how to start cleaning out your bodies. And I know that some of you in here already are familiar with types of foods and ways to eat, and we will get into that as well. But I'm glad that you're all here. We've got a mixed group, I can see. And like Tony, how familiar are you with cleansing type stuff? Is there anybody in here who has never heard any type of cleansing or food related ways to be eating cleaner, you know, beyond the regular society, would you say? Okay. Okay, all right, yeah, just so I know, like, you know, how deep to go.
Just eating
the
better
background.
food, not junk food,
Right.
to be cleaner inside.
Okay, so after we're done, I do have handouts that kind of cover some of my basics, ways to get started. And I don't know if many of you maybe already know, but I'm a master herbalist and I practice Iridology, and I'll just give you a few minutes on what that means. The Iridology, just real briefly here, is the study of the iris of the eye. And what happens if you came to me for an appointment, which I do have brochures that get into the history of how it all started and all that, is I would take a picture of your eyes with a camera. It magnifies it 15 times. You can see all the organs and conditions in the body and the tissues based on pigment color. If there's a lot of brown or any brown dots showing, that's related to the liver. And you can see where toxins have settled in different areas of the body, where what's deepest settled and where is that settled, because the iris has 4 layers to it. The very back layer is black, so when that starts showing through, that means the toxins have settled, you know, into a very deep area. And this is a chart that was invented by 2 people in 2 different parts of the world. One guy, the story goes with the history of iridology, is he had a pet owl, and the owl broke his leg, and he noticed that when the owl broke his leg, there was a black line that appeared in the iris of the eye. And as the leg started to heal, that line got shorter and shorter. So he started to think maybe it was related, and he wanted to study that. And so he went around with people with known conditions, and he knew what they were. Hundreds of people with the same condition. Repeatedly, he went to see if they had the same markings in the same spots in their eyes. And he came up with this map based on that, and at the same time, in another part of the world, another man was doing the same thing, and they both came up with the same map. And as conditions heal, that depth that I was talking about with the very back layer, that will start to lighten, because as the toxins are coming out, it will reach back up to the top layer of the iris tissue, which when you see, if you decided to do this, your own eye pictures, you'll see what I'm talking about with these layers and darkenings, yeah.
So do you actually take a picture of the eye, or?
Yes, it's a Polaroid camera. It comes out right then and there, and it's specially made camera for iridologists. It was designed with Panasonic.
Is there a flash?
Yes, there is a flash.
Really?
It gets very close to the eye, about this far away. So you can
Excuse
see.
me, the condition is the same in animals and in humans?
Well, it showed where the leg is, for instance, is at 6 o'clock in the eye, and it's thigh, knee, foot. So the outer layer represents the outer layer of skin, and things further away like your hand, your foot. It's kind of like a circle of the body, and the inner layer is your stomach zone, but then the intestines are right around the pupil. And you can see the shape of the intestines, if there's any pinching going on, where that is. If the appendix looks like, that's a lot of toxins. And a lot of times I'll see like dark markings in the appendix, which will indicate a lot of times that I'll ask the person, do you still have your appendix? Because at that point, most times it's been removed. But when you remove an organ, the tissue is frozen when the organ was removed. Because there's 28,000 nerves in the body that all end in the iris of the eye, just as they end in the feet, and they're also, I guess, something related in the ear. But so that nerve tissue, as it's living tissue, will make the changes at its end in the iris of the eye. But when you sever that nerve by removing the organ, then it just freezes where it last was. So if I see something like in the ovaries even, or, because a lot of times, or the uterus, the person will tell me, yeah, I had a hysterectomy, or I had the appendix removed, or I had my tonsils removed, or my thyroid, or, and then that's the end of that. But it will show where it was, the condition was before they had that done. So, usually that indicates that, yeah, it was severe enough that they had it out as well. But I try to get people not to remove anything.
And that doesn't go away if you have it removed?
No, it'll stay printed in the eye like that. It's like freeze framed. But as I said, my goal, there's no need to do that. There's no need to remove organs out of the body just because the medical community doesn't know what to do when, things have gotten so badly toxic, they don't really teach anybody how to clean those out. They don't know how to do anything except remove it, just get rid of it. And that's what a lot of people end up doing, because the way that I'm schooled and what I teach is a very ancient, old way of doing things before there were drugs. Drugs are really only since 1900, since the Rockefellers. That's a brand new thing in the history of mankind. Most people, the Hippocratic Oath and all that with Hippocrates, that was when they were really using natural ways of healing with water, saunas even, back in his time, and using food as medicine. Like food, what's the saying? Yeah, let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food. And that is definitely the way I practice. And so we'll get into some of that, but I'll just pass this around because it's just so much easier than a blood test. The thyroid appears in two halves, so a lot of people get a thyroid test, and that's really an average of both. And one could be hypo and one could be hyper. So they could appear differently. You can see the pituitary gland in here, the pineal gland, things that would be very difficult to test for. Different other pigment colors that show up, like in the movies, or in books, they'll describe someone as having beautiful gold flecked brown eyes, right? So those gold flecks are actually, kidney-related issues, and they think, they have the most beautiful, electric blue eyes, And there's two ways, like blue, it should be a deep, dark blue, would be the healthy blue. If it's a bright white blue, then that is showing a lot of acidity in the tissues in the body, which is a lot of whiteness coming through in the blue eye. And acidity shows up, very often. You can see how someone's eating, and that's part of the things I'll be asking you, if you decided to do this on a personal level, is what did you eat in the last 3 days, and just get an idea. Yeah.
So is it a lot easier to read blue or green eyes?
Actually, yeah, blue, definitely they're easier to read. And the different color eyes mean something. Blue means that you've inherited a lymphatic weakness. That's why you have blue eyes. There's a genetic potential in your lymphatic system that it will, if you don't keep on top of it, take good care of it, you have more of a chance of it getting congested. Brown-eyed people have the weakness of liver potential. Okay, this is a potential. Dark brown, like in African Americans, is blood or glandular thickness, thick blood, gallbladder type of things. So each color has its own particular weakness. You can also see diabetes if this zone where the intestines are starts becoming a square instead of a circle. That's a sign of a diabetes setting. And there's other things like orange pigment is related to the pancreas. If the intestine boundary itself starts getting really ropey and thick and raised, that's another sign of diabetes. Yes?
What does green mean?
Green is a blue eye with a yellow wash. So that's kind of like a blue eye with a yellow lymphatic wash, actually. So a lot of times I'll ask people, what color do you say your eyes are? Because sometimes when I take the picture, a blue-eyed person's eyes can look brown because of all the different levels of toxicity, like in the intestines. If the center zone is all brown, I'll ask someone, what color do you say you have? Because brown-eyed people, a true brown-eyed person is called a biliary eye, where it's brown in the center, but then kind of greenish, the brown fades. And that's a real color. So that's why sometimes when it's brown in here, but then blue out here, I'll just double check. And if the person says, oh, I've had blue eyes my whole life, and that's showing that intestinal zone is really toxic. It's loaded with fecal matter.
Don't your eyes change colors? You're really screwed up there.
Like how frequent?
Well, it depends on what I wear a lot of times. They'll look blue, or they'll look green, or they'll look.
Well, I suppose, you know, maybe it'd be depending on what you eat even, like that particular day. I mean, they don't
Some of
usually,
these, when I wear, I don't know, they just change colors sometimes.
usually it doesn't change in terms of these type of signs. It takes a lot to actually reverse changes in the eye. What caused something to happen, you know, as you, over years and years or months and months, when you start reversing that and cleaning that out, the eye is gonna be the last place that it shows up. When the problem starts to appear, the eye will be the first place it shows up. So it's really an early warning system as well. But when you're looking for, well, did what I do work? You know, it takes a lot of thorough, persistent cleansing changes to make, you know, to reverse it so much that it goes all the way up to the iris, the nerve endings in the iris, and then starts to lighten is a lot of times what you'll see with darker pigment colors. You can see blood sugar with rust-colored pigments that represents blood sugar problems. And the lungs, you know, a lot of times I'll say, you know, if the person doesn't smoke now, I'll say, well, did you used to smoke, or did you live with a smoker? Did you grow up with parents who smoked? Because you can see the damage, but then you can also see, well, did this start to get better? Is it, you know, there's, with those 4 layers, it'll show as lightening. And actually, that's why it's a good idea to take 2 pictures, maybe a year apart, or at least a year apart. And then you can see what direction are things going. Are they improving, or are they getting worse with the 2 pictures? But you can also tell that just by how someone used to eat and how they're eating now, you know, that, okay, well, this is probably something that's improving then. But with the lymphatic system, one of the dangerous things is that usually starts to appear around this outer skin layer, and these are all also layers like skin and blood and bones and muscles, and you know, as they get deeper towards the center, the condition is approaching different levels of inside the body. So the lymphatic system generally, if that appears as a congestive thing, will just show up on the outside, and then if it starts to move in though, usually it starts to change. It starts out as maybe white, and then it will change to yellow. These are like cloudy little spots in a ring. It'll change from white to yellow to brown, and that's a sign that it's getting worse. And you know, white to yellow to brown. White is the body's first, you know, it's kind of like the body saying, I have a problem here. You know, it's an acute stage. You know, when you have fever or something, and your immune system's kicking in, it's kind of saying I have a problem. But when it starts to go to yellow, then that's saying, you know, you're not listening to me, and I'm starting to give up. And when it starts to go to brown, it's really starting to just be like, I'm not sending out any more signals. And if you're not having pain, you know, that's actually worse, because the pain is your signal that something's wrong. So when it starts to do that, it's like the body's starting to die, actually. And when it starts to, this is the lymphatic system we're talking about. And when it starts to move inward like that, that's just a real bad sign that things are starting to shut down. So you know, it's good to see it in this fashion. You wouldn't see this like in a doctor's office. And then the idea is, oh wow, look at that, you know. And then you're like, okay, let's reverse that, clean that back out, and get that moving backwards, you know. And that's what iridology does. And it's a lot different. I don't know. There's something about it. It's pretty magical. So yeah.
The pale blue, is that also true in young children?
Well, that's the other thing. I try to take pictures of, you know, if anybody's willing, for children even. And then you can see, like, even in generations, what, like, of the child, a mother, a grandmother, you know, there are things called genetic footprints, and it's just an outline of something. There's no depth to it. There's no darkness or pigment color or anything. There's just like a footprint. And it's just something that they inherited, generations inherited a weakness, you know, because, and that only came from somewhere in their line, somebody started eating badly. It's all, for the most part, food related. And so as a mother, you know, is pregnant, for instance, and she's just eating all kinds of, you know, we'll talk about the details of the food, but let's just say toxic food that's just going to accumulate, and you know, the body's not going to want it, not going to know what to do with it. And then she's pregnant, you know, that gets passed on then, and then, you know, which is what's happening now, generations. You know, we're just eating worse and worse and worse and worse. And that's actually something that can be reversed back up the genealogy scale, where things that were genetically inherited, you can start, being the clean person who's not going to pass that on to your next generation, and then hopefully they'll stay clean, and you can start reversing that. But it's been, things that you say you inherited, that doesn't mean, you have to live with that. It doesn't mean, it takes maybe some generations to get it from stopping to showing up in the.
It's so interesting because my daughter has like white, light blue crystal, and everywhere we go, oh my gosh, look at her. I mean, she's
They're
so
really white?
beautiful. Oh yeah, but they're like light crystal, like light blue, bright.
Well,
light
then I
blue.
would ask you, what is she eating?
But I mean, I mean, pregnancy, my whole life, I've always been very healthy, active, organic, everything. But I'm thinking like.
What is she
my
eating now?
Well, at 3, she's, very picky, but up until then, until when it was all vegetables and everything, now it's like carbs and protein, hardly any vegetables.
I mean, like, fast food or?
Oh, no. I mean,
Sweets, sugars?
No, milk, pasta, cheese.
Okay, those are all
Turkey.
acidic. Milk, pasta, cheese,
And
those
that's
are
all
all
she wants,
acidic.
so.
And that's, so that is acidity then,
Mhm.
that was created by food. We'll talk about what's an acidic food and alkaline food. And the body does want to be alkaline, and most people today are eating a lot of acidic foods. And what that also means is it takes a lot of hydrochloric acid from your stomach to break those down and digest them. And then the stomach starts to wear out. It's just pumping out hydrochloric acid. Like meat, for instance, is one of the most difficult things for the body to digest. It has some of the strongest peptide bonds between the amino acids of the protein in the meat, and it takes more hydrochloric acid to break that apart than anything. So an organ can wear out by constantly having to put out something like hydrochloric acid, or if you are always eating sugars and candies and cakes and pastries and donuts and things like that, your pancreas is going to get tired of putting out insulin over and over and over, and the organ will wear out if you're not supporting it and you're never giving it what it really wants to eat. Our bodies are 10 trillion human cells, but 100 trillion non-human bacterial cells that are, we are a living ecosystem of, you're not just, one thing. So all those little cells in you, they're like little tiny organisms. Each one excretes waste, each one takes in nutrients. And when you're just always taking in things that are suffocating to it, things that don't have oxygen, are not living, don't have their own enzymes, which is only raw living foods that have their own enzymes, then again, your pancreas and your stomach and your liver have to put out their enzymes to break that food down, because that food is lifeless. It has no life force in it, and it has to use your enzymes, which we are born with a limited supply of those. So if you just are always eating cooked foods, especially meats, again, those are the heaviest, hardest things to digest, requiring the most enzymes to break them apart, then eventually, again, that's another thing that starts to happen with the pancreas. It stops, you run out of your limited supply. We have a bank account of enzymes, and your food is supposed to come with its own enzymes, so it just digests itself. But when you're always eating all the time cooked foods, you're going to deplete your own reserve, and those enzymes aren't supposed to be for digesting food. They're to do things like animate you and give you energy and make your mind work sharp and well, and keep all your other organs functioning. So if all those enzymes are always going to digest food, those other organs are going to suffer now. And it's kind of like having the building material when you're putting in food that's cooked, but no workers to do the work of getting rid of it.
Is there any way to replace that?
Enzymes?
Yeah, because I ate McDonald's for the first 40 years of my life every single day, and I know I depleted that bank account. Turn that around. And
Well, with live, raw foods,
Okay.
especially juices, especially vegetable juices, those are, let's start talking about solutions now, right?
yeah.
The best thing for your body and to clean out toxins and to give you new enzymes and new life is live, raw vegetable juices that you make fresh. And as a matter of fact, at the farm, White Rabbit Organic Farm where we have a CSA. Anybody who wants to, I'm gonna put this in an email, but anybody who wants to participate, and we're gonna have a juicer competition to show for people who wanna get a juicer now, which one performs the best, which one gives the most juice, which one's the easiest to clean. We're gonna do that. I'll put that in an email. So just make sure you're on my email list, which, you know, probably most of you are because you're here today. But juicing, yeah, and that's one of my handouts over there. And one of my favorite juices, which is also a recipe over there, so you don't have to write this down, is a liver cleansing juice, because the liver is one of the most important organs to always keep cleaned out. Just keep eating things that are going to support it, clean it out on a regular basis. Just like I equated this to like a vehicle, like a car, you know, where you give it oil changes, right? And if you don't give it oil changes, the oil gets thick and sluggish and dirty, and you know the car just shortens the life of the car, right? Just that, just the oil alone can do that. Same thing with your bloodstream, which is going through all your organs. You know, if you never clean your bloodstream and your liver, which is whose job is to break apart toxins, and the liver is actually like a third of the size of your body. It's enormous. It goes from like, it's huge, and it's a triangle, but it's humongous. And if anybody ever saw like the bodies at the museum in Mosey, did anybody see that?
That's my favorite.
Okay, well that's a different one. I haven't been to that new one, but it's probably similar.
I saw one of them.
And they showed the liver?
Yeah.
Yeah.
very cool.
So that's a real cool display because they peeled the skin off of all these volunteer people who, you know, donated their bodies. And, and they, just to show you, you know, all the organs and tumors even, and smokers, what their lungs look like. A tumor is just the same cells that make up an embryo, a fetus, as it's growing. It's the same, they're called trophoblast cells. And as they rapidly multiply, you know, when a baby is forming, it's like a tumor attached to your uterine wall. And it just starts, you know, 2 becomes 4, becomes 8, becomes 16, becomes, you know, 32, whatever, 54. And it just is out of control, rapid multiplication and cell division. It's only when the pancreas of the fetus forms that it stops doing that rapid multiplication. And it's because of the enzymes from the pancreas, which stop that multiplication. So if you were to get cancer and you don't have enzymes because you've only been eating cooked food all the time and you've depleted a lot of your enzymes, that's why cancer cells are going to go unchecked and just start rapidly multiplying. If you have a large supply of enzymes because you eat a lot of live food, that's why part of cancer therapies for the natural way is like 13 juices a day, 1 an hour, you know, raw living salads. You know, everything is about enzymes, to get those enzymes in there. And the other thing with the cancer cells is they want estrogen. Estrogen also is something that triggers that multiplication. So for women, if you're taking any birth control pills or hormone replacement therapies and you're taking in estrogen, you're just stimulating cancer cells to divide like that. That's what estrogen does in the body. And they've proved this. This is, you know, scientific fact nowadays. So at that exhibit, though, at the museum, they had these tumors, you know, large tumors, and they would have like teeth on one side, hair, and eyeball, you know, because it's the same cells that form embryos and fetuses. And that was really interesting to me because, you know, just to see, oh yeah, that's really true then, you know.
I mean, it
that's
looked
what's
like
happening.
teeth or hair.
Yeah, there was a row of teeth. There was hair. It was like it was like this mass. It was like this big. They had it in a
Actual
case.
enamel teeth on the.
Yeah, teeth.
Yeah.
Teeth. Did you see
I've
that?
read about that too.
I have pictures. I bought the book with the pictures.
Which museum is that?
Well, I don't know if they have that there now. Do they? At Mosey Museum of Science
And that's
in
not
Tampa?
just tumors of the uterus and female organs, that's
No,
in
no.
males too.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah, tumors, yeah. Yeah, males have estrogen too, and women have testosterone. All right, so juicing though, you know, if you want to, I have a handout here, and I'm going to let you take these at the end, but just so you know, the difference of why juice versus just eating the vegetables or, you know, whatever whole, is that when most people, if they did have a perfectly functioning intestine, the most they're ever going to absorb from eating a carrot or celery or salad is 35% of the nutrients from that food. If you juice and it's just, what you're doing is you're juicing the blood of the plant. That's considered the blood of the plant. And our blood is identical to plant blood, except for one thing, they have chlorophyll and we have hemoglobin. Otherwise, we're identical up to the 32nd strand of DNA. So a blood transfusion even, rather than get another human's blood, you could just do chlorophyll, liquid chlorophyll, live from a plant. The best way to eat nutrients isn't really to isolate them like that, where you just want, chlorophyll that somebody chemically separated. You'd want to get just the darkest, greenest, richest plant and then juice it and drink like wheatgrass, for instance. So when you juice something, though, you're intaking 92% of the nutrient level versus a maximum of 35%, which most people are only taking 3% or even 1%. Most people's digestive systems are not functioning adequately. And again, in the eye, you can really get an idea of what exactly your personal one looks like. So that's about why should you juice. And when you juice, you're not just eating 1 carrot or whatever. You're putting like 6 carrots in there and 3 stalks of celery. And this recipe I have for the liver cleansing juice is 1 beet, 3 stalks of celery, a clove of garlic, a handful of dandelion is the best because that's the most powerful for all the cells, but also specifically for the liver. And then 1 beet, I don't know if I already said that, beet, celery, garlic, carrots.
Ginger.
And ginger's great to add, but that's not like in my basic 5.
Garlic.
No, it's just garlic. There's a green, the beet, the celery, carrots. I guess that's it. There's 5. So if you were to drink that juice though every day, which, again, the recipe's over here, immediately what that does is it causes your liver to dump bile because all of them just directly stimulate the liver to dump bile. And the liver will hold on to that toxic bile if you don't have ways of cleaning that out. And that's what you want to do, is get the liver to do that. As every other day, 3 times a week, whatever, something. Once a week, something. Like, start cleaning the liver, and that will decrease the load of toxins in your body because the liver is what's holding them. And people, who used to eat liver, animal livers, like the parents always said it was so great. You're eating all the toxins. So, yeah, that's not a good thing. The other thing, I'm not, going to tell you when to stop eating what things aren't good. As you clean out, your body will naturally start to lighten, and then if you did it, like even for 30 days, you would feel the difference of going back to these heavier acidic foods that, the cleaner you get, the more sensitive your body gets. The less toxins that it can handle, the less hard to digest food that it can handle, and, that alone will keep you, oh, I didn't like how that felt, I'm going to go back over here. And so then what happens is if you get so clean, really you can't eat the garbage anymore. And, you'll just feel sick from 1 sip of a soda. You'll get intense, sharp cramps in your intestines. That's happened to me. I tried to take some ginger ale on Christmas one day, and yeah, immediately. Because the high fructose corn syrup, is really dangerous and harmful, and that's in almost everything. So if nothing else, look at the ingredient labels and don't eat anything anymore that has high fructose corn syrup, which means you're not going to be able to eat anything in the store except for the produce, But again, we already had those kind of conversations that you don't want to buy the produce from far away places and anything non-organic. And this is a very serious time we're in. Chemicals are worse than ever. Food is now becoming genetically modified. So it is a war. It is a war on food. It is a war on health. You have to decide. You have to make that decision. Are you going to be just a blind sheep thing, trusting what's in the food store? Trusting advertisements. Commercials, are really bad to watch. Just mute those out at least, and because they will infiltrate your head. At least put it on mute.
Did you see that one on corn syrup?
What one?
Did you see that commercial on corn syrup?
No.
Yeah,
Is it like people dancing in a
yeah,
field of
yeah,
sunflowers?
The first one I saw was 2 people. It was I guess a girlfriend, boyfriend, and they're in a park, and she's eating a popsicle. She says, "You want to bite?" He goes, "No." And she says, "Why?" He goes,
that has high fructose corn syrup. She said, well, what's wrong with that? And he goes, she said, it's just as nutritional as sugar.
So they must be hearing about it to put out a commercial.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's a
it's-
couple of them like that. When I first saw it, I couldn't,
See?
because I have a reaction to corn syrup. I get really bad PVCs, and it just makes me go really
Yeah, that's,
problems.
I'm actually gonna be, at the Unitarian Universalist Church on, May 1st, I believe it is, showing that movie King Corn. If you haven't seen it, with what's happening in corn, corn, there's certain things that you should always buy organic, and certain things maybe you can get away with not buying organic, but corn is definitely one, always buy organic corn. And carrots is another one, because carrots have the potential to, farmers sometimes will plant a field of carrots just to clean the soil, because carrots will pull toxins into them, and that's why they're so powerful to drink the carrot juice, because they'll pull the toxins like from the liver. And the rumor that people who drink a lot of carrot juice to turn their skin orange, that's just because it's stirring up all that bile and bringing all that bile out to the surface of your skin. It's not the orange from the carrots. And as you continue to drink it and you continue to clean out your liver, that would decrease and eventually fade and go away. So that's bile, that's not carrots.
I was always told celery was one thing that you should always buy organic.
Celery,
That
is
was
really
very
high on
important.
the pesticide list as well. And that's celery. The great thing about celery is that there's so much water in celery, and it's natural sodium. And the natural sodium will help flush out acids in the body, because you want to always be cleaning the liver with things like that juice. The other thing you want to do is be flushing acids out with things like celery juice, which is in that juice, which is why it's in there, and it helps dilute the juice, makes it more watery. Strawberries actually are another one with a lot of natural sodium that will help flush acids out, and that's another one that you should always get organic, because they heavily spray strawberries. There's even a story about some women working in Plant City who were pregnant, and their job was picking the strawberries, and this was maybe 7 years ago. Their babies were being born without limbs because of the heavy pesticide usage at that time. So strawberries are another one, and okra actually is supposed to be really good for natural sources of sodium, but you don't want to juice it. You do not want to fry it. Frying it, fried oils are the most dangerous, harmful thing for the liver in a food. Fried anything. Just get rid of fried anything is another thing. Don't fry oil anymore. There's waterless cookware now if you have to cook something, and I can help you find that source if you want. But there's no need to fry anything. And of course, when you're cooking, you wouldn't want to use a lot of water and boil things either, because all the nutrients are going into the water. The color in the water change is the vitamins. The vitamins are the color in the food. So if you see the water changing color, those are all your vitamins. And we were just reading the other day that, that's a good thing to water your plants with, because of all those vitamins in the water that you didn't want. Even steaming the food will do that. All that color will be in the water still, even with just steamed water.
Can you drink the water?
You can drink it, yeah, and you should. And of course, then that gets into make sure you're using a good, pure source of water. Like
you heat it, and it kills a lot of
the enzymes won't be there,
Yeah.
because they'll be killed at 115 degrees. But the nutrients will still be there. And of course, microwaving, just get rid of your microwaves. If you really want to be healthy, get rid of your microwave. Just make that decision. Say, I am a microwave user, but get rid of it. And get a juicer instead. That's, some people in the field that I'm in will not work with anybody on it. They do not have a juicer. That is like a requirement. If you want people who are really, sick with cancer or strong diseases, juicing is just a must. Juicing is how you're going to get better, faster. The fastest way is juicing. The fastest way you'll lose weight or any, clean out those toxins is juicing, because your body will replace the toxic lymph fluid with the nutritious, vitamin-rich, enzyme-rich juice. It will replace that. That is your oil change. You can also use herbs to speed things up. Herbs are food too. And I'm a master herbalist, so part of what I make are these liquid tinctures. They come in 4-ounce bottles, and they're concentrates of the herbal medicinal properties. There's 3, yes, you've got some there.
High supply,
Yeah, that's-
powerful medicine.
they come in a bottle just like that. That's exactly what it looks like. There's 3 ways to take herbs. One way is a capsule or tablets, which are the least effective way. The least amount is going to be absorbed from that. The second way is a tea, where you heat boiling hot water and you pour it over the herbs, and then that hot water is what extracts the medicinal properties out of the tea. And if you ever make tea, always cover the cup. Don't let that escape. If you smell food in the kitchen that you're cooking, that means, you know, it's escaping into the air, whatever. So teas especially though, whenever you steep teas, you want to cover them the whole entire time. And so that draws out a lot more of the medicinal properties, but it's the tinctures like that, that's called a tincture, which has an alcohol base in it, which is what pulls out the most of the spectrum of medicinal properties. It's the most concentrated, the most direct acting way. And the herbs will be the way that, you know, they will target specifically those specific organs that you want to work on. And you can either just, you know, do the regulars that for cleaning out, and I have these handouts I'll get into, but for spring cleaning, the theme here today, the typical way that you do that is, most important is the intestines. The intestines are actually an outer tube inside that just goes through your body, but it's actually an external tube. Because nothing, you know, there's no interaction with your other parts of the body, fluid or organs. It's just like your skin. It's just an inner tube, and whatever you're eating is the health of your intestines. If you're eating things that have no fiber, like any animal product has no fiber, whether it's milk or cheese or meats or even fish, there's no fiber in that. There's nothing to help it move through your intestines. And you know, that's another consideration when you're eating. If you always try to make sure, if you were eating vegetables, for instance, you know, you would have that fiber, which the juice, even though there's no fiber in there, which the fiber has no nutritional value, by the way. All of the nutritional value is in the liquid blood of the plant. The fiber you're throwing away, there's no nutritional value in there, as long as it's squeezed and dried out. That's just fiber, which is important, though, because that's what's going to move food through. But that one particular juice, not to backtrack, just because it dumps the bile out of your liver, because it stimulates and triggers your liver, that causes a rush to go through your intestines that causes you to evacuate, like, you know, depending on how much you drink, it could be ongoing for, and, you know, it's cleaning you out, let's just say. But that is without fiber, so that's a, you'll see if you try this juice. And it's a great way to keep you regularly clean. So the intestines are 90 to 95% of the cause of all disease, is what they say. That's how important. 90 to 95%. Is there something not being absorbed through the intestinal wall because they're layered maybe with fecal matter that will accumulate like rings on a tree? They can do an autopsy of somebody after they die, cut their intestines in half, and you'll see just ring layers in there. And Elvis supposedly was somebody who had a lot of intestinal garbage. And sometimes you'll see people, all their weight is just in the front, and it's not really like around their body. That's the intestines being full of things. So you would want to clean the intestines for sure. And if you never have cleaned your intestines on the inside, it's guaranteed that that hard layer is in there. And when you do a cleanse, which some of the services are provided here at this building, Treasure Coast Integrative Therapy, I've done all kinds of experiments on how to cleanse and what has the best results. There's some that say, you know, just herbs alone, and of course, it just takes longer. But herbs are things that will clean. They will be like the soap in your body, and they will also repair and increase function instead of like a drug, which replaces function and actually causes that organ to work less and less and less. You know, because your body's now dependent on that drug. The herb will stimulate the organ to clean out, be supportive, regenerate itself. Humans can regenerate tissue and organs. We grow new cells all the time. Like a lizard grows its tail back, there's even herbs that will do that for your spine or missing finger parts, depending on if you get it right when it happens kind of thing. So the intestines, you would want to clean that out. So first you would use softening herbs that would start loosening that layer up, and that's the soap. Then, this is if you want to do a heavy duty, real, in a short time cleanse, 7 days, okay, is you would want to drink something like bentonite clay, which is one of the most powerful things on earth. It pulls toxins out, not just from your intestines, but all the cells in your body. It starts coming through the walls. It like reverses, how it went out, it comes back in and out your intestines. The bentonite clay you would combine with a psyllium, which is like the broom that helps sweep that out. And then you also need water. And the water is the colonics. And the best way is not just to do one colonic, one in a month, or one in 6 months, or one in a year. The colonic water won't be absorbed through your whole intestines. It will only reach, the first several inches. Each time you put it in, it will get deeper and deeper until it goes all the way around. But one colonic is, it's just, you're just not going to get the powerful benefits of that without combining it with these other things. I mean, if you really, really, really want to clean your intestines, this is how you would do it. So you would do 2 colonics a day, once in the morning, once at night, like at 7:30 a.m., 7:30 p.m., 12 hours apart for 7 days. And that keeps that water soaking in the tissue. It's like soaking a dirty pot or soaking anything. Water soaking will start soaking that stuff off too. And the other thing that the water does is you've got the herbs that softened it, the clay that's helped sucking it off the wall, the psyllium that's helped sweeping it out. The water then just flushes it out, and it can come out in one piece like an umbilical cord. This is like, and you can capture it with a strainer in the toilet if you want, and examine it with gloves. I'm serious, because you'll see parasites in there, worms, and there's ways. If you don't have, there's home equipment ways to do this, and then there's professional ways if you don't want to deal with that. Get in a 5-gallon bucket of water, and it's very comfortable though. It's relaxing. It takes about half an hour for each colonic. And each time you do it, you can even, one time I did an experiment where I just did the water for 10 days, and once a day for 10 days. And as it was going through the intestines, I have a chart that shows you all the nerve endings that are in the intestines. They go out into those other organs according to that chart. And you might think, I have the shoulder pain or the neck pain, and that's where my problem is. But in the eye, you can see, well, is it really the shoulder or the neck, or is it that section of the intestines that's just really badly toxic layers? You can see parasites, where pockets of parasites are living. And that would be blocking the nerve stimulant, the nerve supply for the organ next to it. So it's not necessarily, it's that organ, it's just that organ is, even like cancer, breast cancer. They pulled breast cancer out of the breast just by cleaning the intestines, because it was just that section of the intestines that was just leaking into the breast tissue. And once they cleaned it out, it reversed it, pulled it back in the way it had gone out. So as I was doing these colonics, I had this chart. And, because it doesn't go all the way up at one shot. It goes in sections as it has to go through the blockages. And once I went around this area, the corners, you could really feel it. It was really amazing. But I felt it even in my neck. I felt like water, cold water going through the skin of my neck. It was really bizarre. But you've got to try it. Has anybody here never had a colonic? Raise your hand. Okay. Yeah, and like I said, there's herbal formulas that they say it takes 6 to 9 months for the average person just using herbs alone to remove that layer. And the herbs are still recommended not just for softening, but for repairing nerve control, hormone control, muscle tone, and things like that. But the water will do it. It's really unique. And in that time when that's coming out, you have to, of course, clear your whole schedule, because every hour you'd be drinking something. And what starts to happen is moods will come out of you that you didn't know were there. You could be a very mild-mannered person, but the emotions are buried. They're living physical things buried in your cells, and cleaning them out will make you have these flare-ups, let's just say. Or you could have depression, or they would just come and go though. It wouldn't be like, how you would maybe last for days or weeks. It would just be like flare-ups, and that's that emotion being released from the cells. And a lot of that happens when you clean your intestines. I mean, really extreme stuff. My mother was helping me when I was doing it. I had a 2-year-old, and I kept showing her in the book, look, this is what this is, it's just crazy. It's crazy. But then, like I did it, 1 year I did it for the 7-day cleanse, it's called, and then the second year I did it, and it only took me 3 days, and I could tell I was done. And I took pictures to prove to people that, what they show you in these certain books really does come out, because I knew no one would believe me. And you're not eating during that time either, no solid food, because that would only add to the layers. So everything is liquid, what you're drinking is liquid. But after 3 days, the second year I did it, or maybe it was like 2 years later, I became incredibly flexible. It was just unbelievable. And you could just feel like I could run like a deer on the beach and just boundless. I was like, I gotta just run. I just gotta see what this is like. You could feel that you had that potential. It was just bizarre. It was so bizarre. But what it did is it must have gotten stuff out of all my joints too. Any acidic crystallizations that from acidic foods, from especially calcium supplements, will accumulate in your joints because they're intermediate minerals that your body can't absorb. So things just start accumulating, whatever you can't absorb. And they equate like toxic foods and bad things that your body doesn't want as, for your cells, it's like living in a dirty fishbowl. They just start suffocating, there's no oxygen. And so you want to eat the living live foods with the oxygen and the enzymes.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I didn't hear you mention yogurt at all. How do you feel about
Yogurt
yogurt?
is dairy. Dairy is mucus.
Yeah.
So cheese is the most mucus-forming food that you could eat. And mucus is another thing. Any congestion that an organ has is really just mucus. And it's just a matter of where it went, whatever was the weakest, least resistant path to follow, based on genetic weakness. So heart congestion, liver congestion, lung congestion is all mucus, mucus, mucus. And when you stop dairy and you start cleaning out, that's one of the things that would start to happen is you would just be expelling lots of phlegm and mucus like for a week. It would start, once you stop putting it in, it starts coming out. Once you start stuffing these things down and you give your body a break, that's why fasting, they say, is so important. Just not eating will actually, your body will start releasing things that, oh good, I finally get a chance to get rid of this garbage, But I don't recommend fasting without, like juicing fasting would be the best way, because then you're not adding anything that your body has to digest, but you're giving it lots of powerful enzyme-rich, tools to help it get rid of those wastes. So, this really, we could just go on and on and on. But so I'll just tell you the 4 main organs. So intestines is most important, definitely intestines. And you can do that with herbal formulas, and I have some handouts. But if you really want to get serious, the water colonics helps faster and soaks it. And it's just like, the pot and the dishwasher thing. And I would recommend, if you're going to do that, do them in tight sessions. Like, don't spread them out. 2 a day, for 5 days or 3 days or whatever. Do them together because it will soak and soak and soak, and you'll get better results. Then after the intestines, liver is second most important because that detoxifies the body. So you can support and clean the liver. There's herbs that will also target the liver specifically, but then that liver cleansing juice is highly recommended using food as medicine, cleansing medicines. Third in importance is the kidneys. Kidneys are what filter the blood. So keeping the kidneys clean there's herbs again that will do that. Watermelon is good for the kidneys, watermelon juice, watermelon seeds. Actually, another thing is to start drinking a green drink every morning. Nowadays, even if you're eating organic food, chances are it's still not as powerfully nutritious as it used to be or as we need it to be to combat this cleansing. We need the superfoods is what they're called. And so green drinks are drinks that focus on those, which chlorophyll is the most powerful food on the planet. The food with the most chlorophyll in it is chlorella, which like there's a drink I have, I didn't bring it today, but it's called Nano Greens, and it's one of the best tasting ones, and it has the spirulina, the chlorella, the barley grass. It doesn't have wheatgrass in it, but, and about 40 other fruits and vegetables, juiced, powdered, you know, you just take a scoop. It's a lazy way to juice, and it's different than the juice even. So I don't recommend one over the other. I would recommend both. But after the kidneys, then the fourth most important thing, once you got those going and give them a 2-week head start or so, is like if you're using the herbal formulas, is then you would do the blood cleansing formula. And because otherwise, and that will help decrease toxic symptoms that you might experience. Because when you start cleaning, it's important to know you're going to feel worse before you feel better. The symptoms of sickness, fevers, rashes, nausea, headaches, even insomnia, acne breakouts, you know, those are all, if you're cleaning, those are all things that are most likely you're going to experience some of that as things are coming out, the toxins are coming back into your bloodstream. So the blood cleansing formula, that is an herbal formula of blood cleaning herbs, will help get those out like almost immediately to decrease your symptoms. And there's some programs just using food that don't use any herbs, and you know, you can go on, and they say either slow it down by eating less of the raw foods and the juices, and those symptoms will not be so harsh on you, or speed it up and just get it over with. But they don't use herbs, and you could decrease a lot of these uncomfortable things by cleaning, just using that blood cleansing formula, for instance, which I would definitely recommend with the intestinal cleanse. All right, so any questions? And I also have handouts over here about the recommended books to read for recipes as well. For raw foods are the most nutritious, powerful, life-giving foods that you could eat. And even though, you know, you probably can't do that all the time because you're just not creative enough, that would be the only reason, because there's a taste out there that duplicates every cooked food taste and a way to make it. So these are books that would help you to have those recipes. And a lot of them are actually at the library if you wanted to try them there before you bought them. So any questions? Like I said, this is going to go on and on. I want you to eat while you're here. So of course, meats are the most hardest to digest, the most acidic. Dairy is the most mucus forming. You'd want to eliminate all dairy. And you know, milk, cow's milk. And there's a whole, really the best way is just have a personal appointment with me, and I could get into the details of what you're eating and questions you might specifically have. And you could see your eyes and know exactly what you should be targeting and that kind of a thing. And sugar, of course, these are the things not to eat. Sugar is a drug, it's not a food. It's more concentrated than cocaine, more addictive than cocaine. It stimulates the same area of the brain as cocaine. So it's a drug, it's not a food. What?
Honey.
Honey, I personally like raw honey. There's a lot of things that say don't have any sweets whatsoever. And I only use it in my salad dressing. And actually, so I don't have a problem. And I'm very sensitive to things that are not good. And I don't have a problem with that. You know, on a level, you're going to get to that intuitive level of, you know, after you're cleaned out and you got rid of these old habits and old addictions and old voices, which are just coming from those other organisms, those 10 trillion other cells, 100 trillion other cells, depending on what you eat is what's going to create the bacteria that are living in your body. There's bacteria that thrive on anything. There's bacteria that thrive on, you know, battery acid. You know, that's what it loves. It's that bacteria that will only live in 200 below freezing temperatures, and if it goes up to 100 below, they die. And there's bacteria that have to live in boiling hot lava. You know, so there's bacteria that thrive in any conditions. So depending on what you're eating is what's attracting what is living in your body, and that is where those cravings are coming from. And they're going to be mad when you switch your food. They will be very upset, and you know, they'll be screaming out. Yeah.
Isn't it true that honey does not trigger insulin response?
Yeah, it breaks down into different than
pure
sugar.
maple syrup. Pure maple syrup. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, there's, like I said, there's literature that will contradict all this, but I don't have a problem with raw honey, not cooked. It has to be raw. I don't have a problem with raw maple syrup. Everything raw. If you cook it, you turn it into an acidic food. raw is alkaline. Even tomatoes, raw tomatoes are alkaline, cooked tomatoes are acidic. A lot of people don't realize that citrus is actually alkaline. You know, it tests acidic with a pH strip, but inside your body, they are cleaning out. And people who say fruit doesn't agree with them, or salads don't agree with them, you know, don't agree with them, it's those guys that they don't agree with. The ones I was just telling you about. And you know, when you start eating fruits, which are the most cleansing foods, actually, you should eat them separately before you, at least a half an hour before eating anything else, even if it is a vegetable, because they will go through the fastest. And if you were to eat them after eating other foods, then they get stuck in there and then they start fermenting, and that's where problems like gas and bloating would happen, because you mixed it up with other foods, and they do need to be eaten separately, alone.
Well, I know lemon turns alkaline in the body, right?
Right.
Is that the same as an orange?
Yeah,
too?
oranges too.
Oranges turn.
All
I said
citrus.
lemon was the only.
No, it's all citrus.
All
All
citrus.
citrus turn alkaline in the body.
Yeah, they clean out acids. And actually people who say, oh, that makes me feel, you know, I get heartburn from eating citrus, or, you know, something that I'm saying is alkaline, and that's why they're getting the heartburn, because it is cleaning acids out, and so they're feeling acid. You know, so a lot of times when you're cleaning, you'll be saying, well, why would I want to be doing this? You know, I feel worse now. I have a headache, I'm dizzy, that's another symptom. Brain fog, you know, just sleeping, deep sleeping. When you first start cleaning is another good, actually a great thing that happens, but your body just needs to just shut down.
So people will get over that?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
People that complain
No,
about
it's
that?
forever. What?
There's
Oh,
people
the
that
acid
complain
heartburn
about the
stuff?
acid heartburn
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all that kind of
As
stuff,
you
but
clean out,
eventually-
that's what I'm saying. You could either say, oh, I'll slow this down by not eating as much at once, or you could say, well, or else I want to get it over with fast, or you could take herbs that will help, you know, just smooth out that whole thing. I have 50 different formulas, so whatever you need to target, yeah.
I just want to say that I did see Sue, and she was incredibly accurate, because I knew a lot about my body, and I work in the realm of science, and I have a lot of lab work done. You know, I was kind of looking at the whole picture, and it was extremely, she never said you had this or that, but she'd say, you know, is this a possibility, or is that? It was
Right, they
very,
do have, yeah.
very accurate.
Does this
And,
bother
and
you
the,
that much?
I've used many herbs, you know, I mean, I love natural medicines and things, and her formulas are just like, wow, really potent, beyond physical potent. I had a question though about a couple of the superfoods. So you recommend molasses, but is that a cooked food?
Blackstrap, blackstrap.
But is it a cooked food? Do they use heat to extract that molasses, do you know?
That's a good question. Blackstrap molasses, why should, that's a good question.
Usually molasses,
Who knows?
what molasses is when they refine the sugar, that's what's left.
Yeah, that's the
But they
waste
probably have
product.
to boil it down.
Yeah.
That's the waste product of making refined white sugar. That's what has all the vitamins and minerals, and I think it does have enzymes, you know.
But I heard you shouldn't eat molasses.
Blackstrap, it has to say
Blackstrap.
blackstrap, and that has the natural source of iron. If someone's anemic, it will just, that's the problem with like iron supplements or any kind of vitamin supplements, is it forces your body to take on something that, you know, it doesn't necessarily want, and you don't exactly know how much your body even needs if it is deficient in something. Whereas the natural whole food way of, you know, increasing vitamins and mineral deficiencies, such as iron, would be to take something like blackstrap molasses, which is really high in iron, and that will, your body will only take what it needs and get rid of what it doesn't need when it's in the whole food natural form. When it's a synthetic supplement, you're forcing it, and iron is especially dangerous. I think in Utah that was the first or second form of children poisoning was the Flintstones vitamins with iron for children. There was just so much iron, you know, synthetic iron. So, so yeah, and if you came to me, I didn't bring I have so many different handouts. You know, I would give you things like that. Which
Well, I have two other questions, because I got that list from you, which was I left with all these papers and great information. It's a fantastic appointment. I mean, I really feel like I learned more about my body than years of other kind of modalities. The wheat germ oil I know is very susceptible to rancidity. You recommend wheat germ oil and also aloe aloe vera juice, but there's some, I've heard some aloe vera
right, you
juice
have
is
that,
like
but-
all water, so could you address what brands you'd recommend in
Well,
those two products?
Yeah, Barleans, is that flaxseed? Does anybody know Barleans, that brand?
Barleans.
Do they make wheat germ oil too? There is a brand, I'll have to look through my notes.
has the brown.
Yeah, the Barleans is the brown one, but wheat germ oil, there is a brand that supposedly is less likely to become rancid. And of course, these would be raw flaxseed, raw wheat germ. And those are, you know, she's asking something we haven't discussed today, but that would be like a way to take vitamin E, raw wheat germ oil. Instead of a vitamin E capsule, take something like wheat germ oil, which is really high in vitamin E. That gives the skin elasticity, flexibility. Children are really high in those things, and as you age, you have less and less. Yeah.
Well, where does aloe vera juice come in? I mean,
Oh,
I think-
aloe vera juice, which I'll look that up for you too, is it's great for your intestines. It's a healer. It's a cell proliferant. If you had, you know, out externally burned skin or anything, you could use it externally. But it's also great to drink for your intestines. It's soothing, especially someone who has like irritable bowel
What
syndrome.
about the joints and, I mean, does it do anything for that?
Well, for joints that are stiff, chances are, I mean, if you started cleaning out and
Yeah.
juicing, that a lot of that would come out just from that alone. Even just distilled water, they say, will remove a lot of that, because a lot of that's inorganic minerals that have just settled in the joints. And distilled water, because it has no minerals in it at all, will pull out inorganic minerals the body's not using. It will not pull out organic minerals the body is using. People, when they say distilled water will rob your body of minerals, they're talking about the ones your body doesn't want anyway, the ones that are calcifying in places, like your joints.